for Google Workspace for Education. Today we will be focusing on communications and web presence. And we will start with a very brief overview of the Internet to Net Plus program for Google Workspace for Education. And I'll share some information about the Cloud Storage Working Group. And then I'm going to be joined by Matt Klein at Cornell University and Katie McClerney at North Carolina State University, who will be sharing information and best practices and documentation as it relates to communications related to Google Workspace for Education. So first of all, for those who may not be aware, I know many of you have attended several of our sessions. So I apologize for the repeat for some of you. The Internet to Net Plus Google Workspace for Education has been in the program since 2021. We went through a service evaluation. This is our standard Net Plus service evaluation of Google Workspace for Education. We had 8 or 9 universities who helped with the evaluation in 2020 and 2021. And then once we went live with the program, we created a service advisory board. The universities who are a part of the service advisory board are listed here. And typically the service advisory board is focusing on features, functionality, giving feedback to Google on areas that are important to higher education. And also they are helping with pricing or terms and conditions. The first session in this webinar series was on the 2023 service offering. So that's an example of what the advisory board has helped with. In addition to that, we have been working with over 60 universities who are a part of our Cloud Storage Working Group. This is a group that has been meeting over the last couple of years with some breaks here and there. Most recently, the group has focused on these 4 areas you see here: communications, which is the session we're having today, and the other areas: the provision of accounts, quota management, and data migration. We held a session on the provision of accounts on April 6th. The quota management session was on April 7th. So if you missed those, the presentations and links to resources are available on the page you see here listed. Also, the registration page will have the presentations and links to resources, and the recordings will also be made available. The data migration presentation is coming up on Thursday. And then we have 2 other sessions next week, which are going to be led by Google. I do want to take a moment and thank all the members of the communications work group. Similarly to the other work groups, we had a lot of help from a number of universities, and Matt Klein was the leader of the communications work group. And with that, I will hand it over to Matt to walk us through what we've learned over the last few weeks.
Thank you, Dana, and good afternoon, everyone. As everybody could see from the prior slide, the storage changes that we're facing are being felt at a wide range of institutions. It's been instructive in the group to hear about the impact of the changes at different universities and colleges, and see where we're similar and where we differ in our responses. The working group, we discovered that despite differences in our institution's IT services and culture, there are some common themes in the challenges that we're faced with. The first of these is the overall approach to storage. Many of us have historically operated from a pragmatic place with storage, contracting with vendors to try and obtain a really good mix of storage services that best aligns with the needs of our communities while respecting the budgets and passing along advantages where they're available. While this is really efficient in the moment, it does leave open the possibility that later on you'll have to scramble if a situation is altered due to vendor repositioning or some other kind of change. Related issues that may be traceable back to this approach are insufficient focus on storage solution that may be less in the spotlight or need a little bit more work to tease out or identify, or just less of a squeaky wheel, or other needs that might not be addressed that again are not getting covered because it's just not in front of you in the same way. In particular, a more thoughtful approach may bring a better understanding of what could help address the challenges facing researchers. Underlying it all is the question of why we have these storage services and how we hope they will serve the institution's mission. Now, doing this can mean more work in surveying the situation, getting the right people together to consider the options, then formulating that understanding into a framework around the storage services. But ultimately, it can make for a better fit between the institution, its community, and what services are available, keeping the demands on resources reasonable and sustainable over the long term. Understanding the situation and coming up with a good solution are vital, but just as important and as difficult to navigate is how to turn those concepts into reality. One common challenge faced by any sort of service or technological change is that we're trying to talk to people who already have more to contend with than they'd like and are unlikely to be happy to hear that one of their tools is changing and they need to do something about it. But even before you can get to that point, you have to get their attention somehow, and that's not easy either. Across our communities, communication channels are fragmented, and when you do get your message in front of your audience, you still have to stand out from all the other messages vying for their attention in order to get them to engage with yours, think about what it means to them, and then find the time to take action. On a more mechanical note, even the best thought out plan is dependent on the ability to execute it. And in some areas, there's a shortage of tools from Google to do so easily, specifically in file and quota management in photos. And also something that has been a little challenging for some institutions is the method for calculating how much space an institution is entitled to before charges begin. As the base gets smaller, the no charge space also shrinks, meaning it's possible to end up trying to work towards a moving target. If people, disincentivized from using the service due to lower quotas, choose to give up a Google account, the total amount of no charge space calculated by Google as a certain amount of space per account also goes down. So we've talked a little bit about similar challenges our institutions face, but there are differences too. One way we differ is in our methods. There are a number of reasons for this. First of all, Google doesn't serve the same role at each institution. For some of us, it's the primary email and storage service. This ranges through schools that use Google in conjunction with other tools like Microsoft's and Box's, to places where Google services are more used in a supplementary fashion. This and other factors help determine how expansive the contract with Google is and where the balance lies between choosing to pay for extra storage or trying to embark on storage reduction. In reality, for most places, it's a mix somewhere in between, but you still have to sort out where on that continuum you want to fall. This in turn informs level setting for quotas. How much space is allocated for an account of each type? The way these decisions are arrived at vary as well. Some schools take a more centralized approach, while others have larger roles for advisory, governance, and campus partner groups. The scope and timing of changes is also varying by institution, whether the changes are completely Google focused or part of a broader framework that includes other storage solutions. Where quotas are being used, there's also a question of whether they should be applied first to new accounts, first to existing accounts, or both simultaneously. Decisions also need to be made about legacy aspects. In other words, preserving features for people who already have them while not giving them to any new accounts. So next, I think we have a few slides about examples about what different institutions are doing. And Dana has a wiki location that has collected materials that can be used by any attendee, right? Dana, this is open to everybody. So it's different project pages, announcements, templates for communication plans, a wide range of materials that might be useful to people who are just embarking on this journey or just curious about what other schools are doing.
Yes, thank you, Matt. I will put a link in the chat and we'll also share the presentation after the fact. But the wiki page for the communications workgroup has all these links to resources. You'll find full sets of examples of emails that were sent by a couple of universities. Also examples of websites, knowledge base. So we are hoping you're going to find all of these helpful, and we'll continue to add to it. Also, if you are willing to share what you've developed, whether again it's links to pages that are public, or for some that might not be public, if you're willing to share that in the form of a PDF, we are happy to add those to this growing list of resources. Then the next example we shared with you, we would like to share with you. North Carolina State University has developed this calculator, which we actually have a link. It's on the slide here, and I'll also share it via chat. It's something that you can adopt and use on your own campus. And Katie's going to talk to us about how they have it set up. And we'll be happy to take some questions. We also have a couple of slides to get through, and then we'll open it up for questions. But first of all, Katie, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Dana. And thank you, Matt, for taking the lead in this subgroup. There's been a lot of helpful and engaging conversations through this process. I'm Katie McInerney. I'm the training coordinator with the Office of Information Technology at NC State, and I also sit on the Google Services team. And I'm here representing some of my colleagues. And in some of the subgroup conversations, we shared a resource that our Google admin developed internally because we were getting a lot of requests from leadership regarding our data, regarding our storage usage. And we are in the very early process of this journey. And so we're still trying to identify what our next steps are going to be. And so there's been a lot of questions coming through our Google team. And so Matt Dull, our Google admin who developed this tool, was running spreadsheet after spreadsheet, pulling data after data, and realized, you know what, I'm just going to develop this tool and allow our CIO and other leadership to plug in the numbers that they want to see. And with this calculator, they can see the impact on various populations based on the numbers that they enter. And so Matt did create a public template, and the link, I believe Dana added in the chat, and you can make a copy and enter in your own data outputs. And there is a README tab that will guide you through some helpful hints and instructions. And there's also some notes in the red highlighted fields that will provide additional guidance when you're utilizing this for your own campus needs. And I do want to clear up maybe some confusion. These are not actual numbers that represent our domain. These are fake stats that Matt has imported into the spreadsheet. But the small group thought that it was pretty helpful and that it might help others as you are evaluating your current status and possible next steps.
Thank you, Katie. So I will add that what this calculator allows you to do is play with quotas for those various types of account holders, students, employees, so on and so forth. And that automatically shows you the impact on overall storage use. So you have the current state on one side, and then the other side allows you to play with those numbers and see the impacts. And talking with Katie and her colleagues at NCSU, this has proven to be a very helpful tool for them, especially as they meet with the leadership team and are able to show the impact of making adjustments in quotas by OU. So we'll move on to the last part of the presentation, and I will hand it back to Matt to walk us through the lessons learned.
Thank you. So some of the conclusions we drew from our conversations, first of all, it's really important to have leadership aware, supportive, bought in, connected, however you want to phrase it, to what you're doing. The role I serve at Cornell is in the IT communications group. In my experience, it's really important that there be a thorough understanding of what's about to transpire before you make any decisions or any announcements. And the reason is that preparation helps get people ready. Should someone for some reason be unhappy, which we know happens quite frequently, and find their way to someone, this isn't the first time they're hearing about it. They're aware of it. They've been asked for their thoughts. Maybe they've provided them, had some discussions, but at least they're briefed. So I think this is a very, very important component. And along with that, early and consistent involvement of governance groups. It helps keep them informed of all the facts on the ground. They are also bought in. You get to hear from them some complaints and concerns before it's released to the general public. They can inform what you do, or at least they're weighed in a setting that is deliberative in nature, and those people are likewise prepared. So these are some of the decision makers that are involved. Then you're sort of spreading out your circle to people around your institution that are going to be encountering this. Their staff will be running into it. People that they serve will be running into it and coming to them, sometimes surprised, unhappy possibly about what's going on. And so they need to know ahead of time, because they really can't help anyone if they are likewise surprised when these changes happen. So try your best to brief them, get their support, help them understand proposed changes. And to the degree that you can, if you can share with them the actual facts on the ground, who is going to be specifically affected by this? And are they people that need some special assistance, preparation? They might need some more support. That can help quite a lot. There are extenuating circumstances for most things that we interact with, and providing this information can again help soften a change or just make it seem less unreasonable if you can factor in something that isn't part of the broad swath of how business is done, but is nonetheless essential and needs to be addressed. And then conversations can happen about where data should go. And that ties in with sort of some of the earlier information we reviewed about having that plan, having some sort of a overarching concept about storage. You can also set up situations that are train the trainer. So in other words, you've got emissaries around campus that can help out with the changes that will have to come, working with departmental staff or other people who might be able to make things go smoother for people who are impacted most greatly by all of this. Now, the one thing that I in particular worked on and had a lot of experience with is having detailed resources available. We spent a lot of time preparing a website, going through the content on it, making sure that everything is accurate to the best of everybody's understanding, even going into the future, which is very, very challenging because the situation on the ground has changed a bit over time too. So it's really impossible to predict quite where things are going to land, but sometimes you do have to take your best guess to try and head off uncertainty, to try and make sure people aren't left in a state where they just don't understand what they're facing. And when there are questions that are not answerable, you clearly delineate that and let them know that more information will be coming as soon as it's available, and that you're going to do your best to not just land changes on them with very little time allowed. So one of the people in the group also suggested running monthly reports on all that information to see what's being used most often and give you a better idea of what is important to people, what they really care about. So those are kind of the things that the group had in common. And there are a lot of other components that varied per participating institution, but we were mostly looking for what could we say that were common across all the people involved in the group, in the hopes that other people coming to check out the resources that were available would also similarly be affected. But I think we're to the Q&A part now.
Yes, thank you, Matt and Katie. We'll go ahead and open the mics if they're not open already. And